Good evening. It is working. It is now 6:30, and we are calling the regular board meeting of August 22nd, 2020 of the Board of Park District Commissioners of the Lake Bluff Park District. I'm just going to say very quickly, we once again are using microphones for tonight as we meet in the gymnasium. I know it's a little echoey. If anyone wants to, if anyone can hear, I hope that they can, but we are going to have to use the microphones to be able to be heard on the audio that's being recorded for this evening. So we'll start with that, and can I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Greenfield? Commissioner Lane? Commissioner Raymore? Commissioner Reeder? Commissioner Walsh? Commissioner Weber? President Beal?
Here. Our next item is the approval of the agenda for this evening. May I have a motion, please, for the agenda? Yes. Please pass out the microphone down to Susan.
I think we do discussion before we do a motion. Is that how we decided? I'd like to request the following agenda change. Under new business, golf license agreement to remove the word approval. We need to discuss the task force findings and determine a timeline and next steps before we lock ourselves into a date of December 1st. Thank you.
So
I guess that's my motion for the agenda.
So your motion, if I'm understanding correctly, Sue, is to remove the word approval under item 5A. Okay. Is there a second to the motion?
I second.
Okay. Any discussion? Seeing as none, can I have a roll call for the vote, please? And Marcia, you heard the motion?
To approve the agenda as amended.
It's to approve the agenda as amended with the removal of the word approval after item 5A, golf license agreement.
Commissioner Greenfield? Commissioner Lane? Commissioner Raymore? Commissioner Reeder? Commissioner Walsh? Commissioner Weber? President Beal?
No. May I please then have a motion to approve the agenda with no amendments? Roll call.
Commissioner Greenfield? Commissioner Lane? Commissioner Raymore? Commissioner Reeder? Commissioner Walsh? Commissioner Weber? President Beal?
Yes. On every agenda that we have an item for a statement of visitors. Once again, this is to address items that are not on our agenda for this evening. I will say again that we do have the ability of public commentary after each one of our new business items. So if you are going to make a comment now for the statement of visitors, again, it's for an item that's not on our agenda for this evening. You'll have up to 3 minutes to be able to speak, and then we will close that after 30 minutes. Is there anyone who would like to make a statement for this evening?
Yeah, hi. Thank you for your time today. As many of you know, my name is Rich Martin, and I missed the last listening session since my wife Stephanie and I, along with our 3 young adult children, were completely unplugged in the Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness in northern Minnesota on August 9th. This 3-day trip into this expansive wilderness area was a stark reminder to all 5 of us about the importance of creating and preserving wild spaces whenever possible. While the Lake Bluff Preserve would not create a boundary waters experience here at home, it would be a vast improvement over the chemical-soaked grasses that now exist on an obsolete and financially strapped golf course that all bluffers can enjoy, not just 80% of the golf club. That being said, I would like to turn to two issues that I was surprised were not on tonight's agenda: the looming capital needs of the Park District and the lack of progress with SMC. Both of these issues have been brought up countless times during the two listening sessions, during task force meetings, and in public comments during the park board meetings over the last 6 months. You called the meetings on July 25th and August 9th listening sessions, but board leadership appears not to be doing a whole lot of listening when it comes to topics they don't like. As we all know or should know, the beach and pool are in need of $6 to $10 million, but there is no plan to address these huge capital expenses. And you haven't even discussed the matter at any of your meetings, including this one. Everyone else is talking except you. But now you have time to talk about a contract extension that doesn't need to be addressed until a year from now. Additionally, why has board leadership not directed the team to start meeting with SMC, as so many people have requested, including the task force? Having the Park District lawyer send a series of questions that can largely be answered by reading the task force report does not constitute a good faith effort to meet with SMC. Please send a team to physically meet with SMC that not only has the skill set to move the process forward, but has an open mind about this opportunity. Continuing to drag this process out is in no one's best interest, particularly the Park District. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to make a statement?
I'm Connie McCabe, I'm from the Sanctuary, and I've been a teacher for 49 years, 42 of which I spent in Lake Forest. I've come to recognize board indifference when I stand in front of a group of people, and that's what I see here tonight. So I'll resort to my time-honored teacher tactic of a pop quiz with several easy questions. Question number 1. How many positive in-person interactions, constructive, have you held with SMC in this past year? The answer, 0. How many referenda have you had to solicit the opinions of the residents? Only a few listening sessions where you keep hearing from the same people over and over again, like me. Again, the answer, 0. The third question, how many financial plans were you able to submit to the task force when they requested them to deal with the looming needs of the pool, the beach, and the debt? Again, the answer is 0. And hence your score, in my opinion. Although you claim to listen, we see no discussion, we hear no airing of the issues. And although you've seen me up here several times, I would like to remind you that I am just the tip of the iceberg, having spent countless hours in various neighborhoods in the community talking to people, many of whom refer to it as a no-brainer. What does that mean? But if I am just the tip of the iceberg, I would like to suggest that you, in fact, are the Titanic, holding steady to a perilous path that's only going to end in catastrophe, certainly financial catastrophe, for this town in which we live. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who would like to make a statement? I'll turn to whomever may be on Zoom for this evening.
There are none.
No. Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to our agenda then, we are into the verbal communications. First, from the staff.
We don't have any verbal communication other than what is in our reports this evening.
Okay. And that concludes the staff. Thank you very much. And next up is, I believe we do have our attorney who's with us tonight. Megan? Is she on via Zoom?
Thank you. Sorry, I was having a little problems unmuting. I do have one update, and that's that it looks like SMC has increased the fees in the north for the North Branch Chicago River watershed in the last month or so. It looks like it went from 149,800 an acre to 181,500 an acre. We still haven't had any response to all of our requests out to SMC. So I don't know if that increased fee is something that what it's based on, or if anyone will agree to pay that. We've been trying to collect information as to how much has been collected in the past, and we haven't gotten any answers. But I did want to update you on that.
Okay, so you're still waiting on information, if I heard you correctly?
Correct.
Thank you. Anything else?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, Finance Administration and Future Planning Committee. All right. On to the Parks and Beach Committee. I'm happy to say we did meet. And I'll kind of turn as well to Nikki and to Sue because they're parts of the committee as well. It was a really productive meeting in that we learned that the pool had an increased number of memberships as ever before. The beach was used by far more residents, I think, than we've ever had in the past. So the pool and the beach both had incredible usage this summer. There was discussion as well, and we can have this on our agenda too, about the North Shore Water Reclamation District Basin Project. But an important thing that came out of our meeting was the fact that we are continuing to look for grants. We're continuing to look for other forms of funding for projects for the beach. There is an intern from Lake Forest College who's working on staff with John Beeler. An intern will help in many ways. Grant writing is very technical, but it'll be good to try to get those things off the ground to see if there are other forms of funding for different projects that we have at the beach.
Just two other things, I think a little deeper on the grants, and John, you might be better suited to deal with this, but the FEMA grant, we resubmitted, and so that's, kind of a step further along in that process, right?
Right. Yes, we are resubmitting that this year. We did not receive it, this past year, but we're in the process of reapplying for the same FEMA funding for the erosion control down at the beach, and there's also an IDNR coastal grant that we're applying for at the same time.
And then I think the only other thing that I had from my notes is the beach cleanup on September 17th. Everyone should come help clean up the beach on September 17th.
Thank you.
Sue, do you have anything else to add? Nope. Okay. Facilities and Programs Committee.
We haven't had a meeting. Our next one is scheduled in October, and we'll be starting the timeline for the pool at that.
Okay, thank you. Friends of Lakewood Parks.
Next meeting is the 29th. We've still had problems scheduling one, so next Monday.
Thank you. Any other comments from commissioners? All right, and then on to my report. I've already hit the highlights about the pool and the beach. With the start of school, it feels like summer's over, but it's not over yet. The pool is still open, the beach is still open, modified hours. Camps are over, and again, I just want to say, as we've spoken about this before, this is what the Park District is all about. We were able to help our neighbors in Highland Park with offering camp programs, and I'm very, very happy that the Park District was able to do it. That's the Lake Bluff spirit. I will say this too, because of what we have on our agenda for this evening. When I spoke at a president's report several weeks ago, I mentioned that SMC had applied for a FEMA grant. We have made an oral request. We've made several written requests. To date, we have not received a copy of that grant application. And we feel that it's very important that we work with SMC, that they share this information with us, because their request to us was to support them in this. And seeing the underlying document is pretty critical so that we know as a board how to be able to respond. I will say as well that following their request for the FEMA application, we also made a written request to SMC to say, when we see this, we would like to be having a seat at the table. That we have the Naval Base, we have IDOT, we have North Chicago, and we have SMC. And so long as we're included, the Park District land is included in this conversation looking for stormwater storage, it's important for us to be part of this conversation. So that reach, that ask has been made, that was again several weeks ago. We haven't heard anything back from them yet. The final thing is, and just so that people are very aware of this, I know you've heard this before, we seem to go over the same information again and again. A FEMA grant is a federal grant. A federal grant to create wetlands would create wetlands that we cannot sell for credits through the Park District. So that's why it's important for us to be able to talk to SMC, because we know that this avenue is closed to us to be able to do wetlands for credit. At this time, there is no state funding that's available to SMC for a stormwater project. If it's available, we'll certainly be there. We're willing to listen, but that's where I just wanted to bring everybody to a status as to where we are now. Last thing, in September, in October, our staff actually, will be talking to us. As I said before, we need to talk about how this proposal would impact the Park District operations and how it would impact our financials and what is the legal implication of what's being proposed to us. So the staff will bring forward information, hopefully in about 2 meetings, to be able to talk about that critical element. This is kind of, I'm going to say dovetailing and supplementing the work that the task force has done, because they looked at it from a number of different options. Now we're getting into the nitty-gritty as to how this affects the Park District. So from there, we'll go on to the consent agenda. And I'll ask if, because this is a full packet, if there's a motion to approve the items that are listed in the consent agenda, which include the minutes from July 18th, the minutes from July 25th, the minutes from August 4th, the invoice schedule for ACH payments for July of 2022, the invoice schedule for the period ending July 20th through August 17th, and the purchase cards.
Hey, Noah, I have a quick question. Page 26, we paid for a Blair roof moisture scan. Is that something that was planned, or is that something that's just kind of come up?
No, that was not planned, but it's part of our planning ahead towards roof repair for next year. We wanted to get a moisture scan to see if there was any areas that we knew were leaking ahead of time that would change the methodology that might be used for the repairs itself.
All right, and approximately what's the timeline for going out to bid and then subsequent construction of that?
It would probably end up in fiscal year of 2023 at this point. But to the exact timeline, I don't know the exact timeline.
No, that's perfectly fine. Just want to clarify. Thank you.
Anything else off of the packet of the agenda, consent agenda? Can I have a motion, please, to approve the consent agenda? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Greenfield, Commissioner Lane, Commissioner Raymore, Commissioner Reader? Commissioner Walsh? Commissioner Weber? President Bueller?
Yes. Next, our financial report.
Hello, Petty House Superintendent of Business Services. I am cautiously optimistic to say that the short-term financial outlook remains positive. Revenues are coming in or they're exceeding budget, and expenses are still coming in under budget. This is primarily due to increased property tax disbursements and collections, and which are doing very well. Thank you.
Anyone have any questions for Wolf?
Hey, Wolf, are we just pulling that forward on like a month-to-month basis? Or is the annual number tracking higher than we budgeted?
The annual number is tracking slightly higher than budgeted for both the revenues and the expenses.
Thank you.
That's it. Thank you very much, Wolf, for that report. On to our new business. We do have 3 items on for this evening. The first would be the golf license agreement. Again, what I'd like to do is have... Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. We do have to approve the financial report. May I have a motion, please? Roll call.
Commissioner Greenfield? Yes. Commissioner Lane? Commissioner Raymore? Commissioner Reader? Commissioner Walsh? Commissioner Weber? President Bueller?
Yes. Thank you for that. Sorry, I'm moving these pages. All right. Now we're on to the golf license agreement. What I would like to say first is that this has been I know it seems to some people that this was not expected, but the task force does have this referenced in their report that the board was negotiating or renegotiating the contract with Golf Visions. This has been something that has been an agenda item that was voted on, I believe, back in February. So this has been on our radar, and it's been part of the discussion with the task force during their 6-month time. And so tonight we do have a proposed amendment to the Golf Visions contract from 2018. So what I'll do first is ask Paul to talk about kind of the history of where we came from and how we are and where we are today.
Thank you, Jennifer. To briefly recap some of the background, and only a small amount of the background. In 2018, following what was significant community involvement, and having a community group raise $130,000 in order to refurbish the clubhouse, the Park District Board made a commitment to the community to continue operating the golf course. With the management contract that was then with Billy Casper Golf coming to an end, and with an unsatisfactory experience with Billy Casper, the board decided not to renew that management contract, but to open the bidding to other golf management companies. Golf Visions was one of the companies that bid to manage the course. The bid from Golf Visions was different from that of other management companies, in that Golf Visions would take on all operational financial risk. So risk of day-to-day finances, with a revenue sharing formula with the Park District. This approach was accepted by the Park District Board, and a contract was signed in October 2018 that would run from the 2019 season through the 2023 season. About 18 months ago, 2 issues that were in the contract caused some of us on the board to have some concerns that we felt we needed to address. First was that it was still the Park District's responsibility to pay for all capital needs for the course, other than requirements related to the kitchen and food service. Second was that improving and increasing activities for the community was not being properly addressed by either the park district or golf officials. The board therefore created a golf committee, which included Emily, myself, and Chris Monsberger as a citizen member, with the goal of addressing these issues with golf officials. Both of these issues have been addressed in the amendment that we're discussing tonight. In general, the people who play the course and use the facilities believe that Golf Visions is doing a good job managing the course. The course has been in consistently good shape, and it has been attracting a really good number of golfers. We also believe that Golf Visions has been a very cooperative partner, including adding some capital items to the course and clubhouse that are not required by the contract. And I think I can safely say that staff has a very good relationship with the management of Golf Visions. It also became clear that Golf Visions was willing to address the issues we were concerned about based on an extension of our contract. So based on the history we had with Golf Visions, the relationship we had with Golf Visions, and Golf Visions' willingness to address these concerns of ours, we therefore advised the board, and the board agreed to negotiate with Golf Visions on this basis, with certain caveats due to the various requests being made by SMC. The results of these negotiations are included in the packet as amendment number 1 to the contract. Primary points include: the term of the agreement is extended until December 31st, 2028. A fixed payment in the amount of $330,000 over the term of the contract will be made to the Park District, with $40,000 being paid this year, $40,000 being paid next year, and those followed by payments of $50,000 annually through the end of the term. This represents new payments that are not included in the current contract. The revenue sharing with the Park District remains at 10% of revenue above $800,000 for this year. This figure rises to 12% of revenue in 2023 and 17% of revenue above $800,000 annually for subsequent years, which means we'll get a 70% increase in our revenue sharing deal. We assume an obligation to form a golf committee in order to more formally work with Golf Visions to increase and improve community activities with the golf course. There is a clause in the amendment allowing the Park District to terminate the amendment without penalty should we sign an agreement with SMC by December 1 of this year that would result in the closing of the golf course in order to create stormwater storage on the property. And there are additional clauses relating to the interruption of golf course operations should the course be closed for a period of time to accommodate some other kind of stormwater storage on the course. While financial results will of course not be known until the end of the agreement because of the profit sharing portion of it, we can expect that the payments we will receive should cover expected capital needs of the golf course. And through the golf committee, we also should expect that we can dramatically increase community activities centered around the golf course. And I would stress that all other terms and conditions of the contract that are not changed by the amendment remain the same.
What I'd like to do now is open this up to the board for discussion. And any other questions that anyone might have?
Thank you, Paul, for that explanation, and thank you, Paul Henry, for doing the work. I have a question around the December 1st, 2022 date for coming to an agreement or not with the Lake County SMC. What was the thought process around selecting that date?
We felt that there had to be a point in time, and I think it was both Golf Vision's and from our side, that we felt there had to be a point in time when all the parties knew that this was going to continue. Golf Vision certainly wanted some time to know that they had a golf course to manage for the next X number of years. I think this date is, and as we discussed it internally, there were some voices for having it earlier. There might have been voices for having it later. But I think the feeling is that given the information we have and the state that we're at in our discussions, that December 1 was an appropriate cutoff date to say, okay, now we move forward and we have, we continue to operate the golf course the way the contract envisions, or we've moved on to some other process.
I wonder if that will allow us enough time to fully explore the opportunity with the SMC. And I'm wondering what other commissioners' thoughts on that are as well.
And if the task force can turn around a 200+ page report in however many months we gave them, I think we should be able to come up with a decision before then. We've already been sitting here listening for 6 weeks now, listening to community comments, and it's time for us to make a hard decision.
Can you hear me? Okay. In thinking of the task force, when they gave the report out, they thought end of the year would be a good date. I think it would be respectful to them if we could at least consider December 31st as the date rather than December 1st, because it's 3 months away. There's a lot of data for us to work, and I want to make sure we come up with the right answer. And Steve did say it should be done by the end of the year, but if it doesn't make a difference, if that wasn't a hard number, is there any damage by changing that to a little bit later?
So I think when we were discussing this, December is not a great month to get a lot done because of the holidays, first of all. And I think we looked at the period and what we would do and what we would have time to do. And just to reiterate what Scott was saying, that we have enough time to turn this around. I think the task force, they felt that for better or for worse, they felt that certainly by the end of the year we could make a decision. And I think most of us, as we've discussed these issues, that we all feel we can come to a decision well before the end of the year.
I guess what I really am worried about is I don't think we have discussed the issues. I don't think we as a board has talked about the task force report yet. We have not had a single meeting with that. If we're going to get, again, what Steve said was find out what the community wants and try to make it happen. And we don't have a plan for how we're going to finalize that. I have to agree with what someone said earlier, just listening to people come in, some people came 3, 4, 5 times. So discerning through all that information to really make sure we have a good pulse on what the community wants, and then making sure that we can assess what's reasonable in the project. I guess I'm concerned that we were already 6 weeks into it, and we haven't started even doing that.
I think Jennifer laid it out really well earlier tonight in her president's report that in September and October, staff is going to come look at kind of the three-pronged approach that she outlined: the operations, the legal, and the financial approach. And I certainly think after those meetings, we'll have a very good grasp of where we stand and what we want to do. So if you assume that those, will wrap up in late October, early November, I think that does actually give us some time to make this work.
It could, but if it's not a hard stop, what harm does it do to push it out a month or two?
Sorry, when was this contract originally completed by you guys? When was this put out to us? Like when was this? This isn't new. Didn't you know this was negotiated a bit ago? And Gulf Visions has heard nothing back from us in that time.
We have gone back to Gulf Visions, and we agreed on the financial side. As a notion for the contract, and we gave them a draft of the agreement. We gave them the draft of the agreement, and they came back to us and said that that was fine. They agreed with that, so that with our approval, we have a contract that we would sign.
So basically, just what I'm getting at is this, to me, seems like a huge improvement over what we've had in the past. If we are going to continue with golf as an opportunity and, with having outs, I don't know why we would want to make Golf Visions worry at all. They've seen all this, they know what's going on. I feel like I don't know that we would want to go back to them with an amendment for something that would give us maybe 15, maybe 20 working days, not even probably in December with all the holidays.
I would agree completely. We went to Gulf Vision, negotiating in good faith with them. And I think we have to continue that process. And we have to continue the process of moving forward in an expeditious manner. So, with all the discussions. And I think that includes this agreement.
Are there any other points that need to be added to this amended contract? That there was something about being able to use the golf course clubhouse or something? Yeah. Are there any points that need to be added to this? I guess is the next one.
There's a few things that have been discussed, but weren't decided, at this time to be included as priorities, such as using the clubhouse for more like entertainment, maybe, doing concerts on the weekend or trying some different things with the kitchen. We are doing some more entertainment and trying a couple of our concerts that need to be rescheduled. We're bringing them out here to try that, but right now they're not written into the contract. So I think it's fine. As long as they approve it, Golf Visions and they are approving these. They're fine with us bringing the concerts here and trying to, just utilize that 10 pad and not lose our deposit on, the concerts that we previously had, reschedule. The fireworks, yeah, will be hosted here again as well in September.
I just have another question, if I could. What is the thought process on moving forward with golf visions versus maybe talking with a few other golf companies about what they may bring to the table?
Well, again, we know how the management companies operate. We know the models that they use. Golf Vision has come to us with a model that is really very, it reduces our risk dramatically while giving us a good operator of the golf course. And now with the contract amendment, we have the added advantage of getting the capital expenditures covered. This is not the normal model. It's not the typical model managing a golf course. Our district board, before any of us were on the board, the Park District Board went over this. Billy Casper had a different management model. The board liked the approach of Golf Visions because of they're accepting the financial risk of operating the golf course. And I think it made a lot of sense for the board when we decided to negotiate with Golf Visions. It's a period of time when we look at our financial situation, which is good, but getting better over the next coming years as we get that off the books. It's a good opportunity to have a stable operation where we don't have to worry about the operation of the golf course. We don't have to worry about getting hit somewhere on the bottom line from the golf course. And where we can say we have a good management company, we have a good relationship with this company, we can call the owner, the vice president of the company anytime and talk to them about any issues we might have. And we get that kind of stability. They've taken good care of the golf course. We think with the golf committee we can improve on things. And I really look forward to having that formed in an operation. But this model, at this time, this is the model that made sense to us. We negotiated on that basis, and to me the model still makes sense, that this is the way to go for the board. And we should proceed as we had committed ourselves to with Golf Visions.
And you brought up a good point, though, asking why don't we send this out for an RFP? John and I had talked to council earlier today about this, and that was one of the things that was brought up. When the original RFP was sent out, it was with a good faith basis and the option to extend the contract. So when people originally submitted their bids for this, it was with the thought at that time that they had the option to extend the contract, that it wouldn't go back out to an RFP as well.
So this contract goes through 2028, is that right, Paul? And what is the total amount we would be receiving upfront, excluding any type of upside percentage? It's
$330,000.
So $330 guaranteed through 2028. I just pulled up the capital requirements for those of you who may be new to this and have heard lots of comments about, the financial plan of the park district. It's something that we've talked about in Finance Committee meeting quite substantially leading up to the task force findings. And to summarize, we're maxed out on debt. We can't raise any more debt until 2026. And so our capital needs for the golf course from now until 2031 are a total of $807,000. If we look just at the fixed amount we will be receiving through 2028, what is that? Let's call it, 40% of the way there. And then we look at a little bit of upside. We're getting darn close to breaking even on the golf course and it being self-sustaining. I'd love to kind of get an idea maybe of what those numbers actually look out to, something we can look into at a future Finance Committee meeting. But from where I sit, from my perspective, I think it's a nice arrangement and something that's certainly they didn't need to do. We went to them, we asked for more, and we got it. So I will stop there.
When I went through the capital needs for the golf course through 2028, I came to a base figure of $530,000. You can always spend more money if you want to, but that base figure of $530,000, and if we look at the financial results, if the course did $1 million in revenue annually, and of course it's not going to be exactly $1 million, and it's not going to be the same every year. If we come to $1 million annually, our revenue during that period would be $544,000. So we're already, and in the past 2 years, revenue has not been below $1.1 million. And last year it was almost $1.2 million. So, we start looking at having a little bit more money to put into the golf course, being able to improve some things that we'd like to improve. Certainly having a buffer, because you can have a bad year, you can have a year where the revenues are down. There's no question about it. But from a financial point of view, I think it allows the park district to just take a breath and not worry about it. And perhaps do much better.
Any other questions or any other discussion from the board?
Just want to say, I like what you did. I think the negotiation was good. I have a sticking point, but I want you to know that I'm very happy with the changes that are in the amendment.
Thank you. And on that note, I guess, we will turn this over for public comment. Again, it's not a question and answer, it is just public commentary. We'll listen to the people from here in the gymnasium, as well as those I understand already who are asking to raise their hand on Zoom. With a nod again to the teacher who's here tonight, I don't want to have to use my teacher voice, but I ask that again everyone be respectful and stay to the 3-minute time limit. Thank you.
So I'd like to start my comments by correcting Paul Greenfield's miscalculations. I'm looking at page 2 of the contract renegotiation, page 38 of the packet. And that explicitly says at the bottom, licensee Golf Visions shall pay licensor $50,000 per year for years 24 and 28. not 24 through 28, 2024 and 2028. You just said that we were going to get $50,000 for 2025, 26, 27, and we are not. This contract is very different in actuality from what you think it is, and it's just further evidence of the slipshod process that you follow. You can't even renegotiate a contract, right, and report it and describe it to the public correctly. You've already deceived us about $150,000 of revenue from this contract. Who knows how else we're deceived? You claim that you're going to discuss September and October and talk to the community and figure out what you want, and then you can sign an agreement by November. But you have to then negotiate with SMC. You have to have long, extended discussions. You have to have lawyers approve it. There's no way that you can spend September and October figuring out what you want, and then if you decide to do it, there's no way you can sign a contract in 1 month, an intergovernmental agreement this complicated in 1 month. You may decide you want to do it by December 1st, but the contract only allows you out if you sign a new contract with SMC. And there's no possible way you can sign a new contract with SMC by December 1st. The whole point of that date is to preclude the future board, which there will be, without you, Jennifer, without you, Paul, and without you, Emily. That board, you are trying to hamstring them and prevent them from doing what the public wants and what the public will elect them to do. And you other members of the board should think very hard about that, because there's going to be a new board, and that board is not going to sit still for this kind of deception. And finally, Paul's comments make clear that he cares a lot more about golf visions than he does about the Lake Bluff public. Golf visions has no risk.
Please not to direct comments to people individually. We're speaking to the entire board.
We retain all of the risk, all of the capital risk in this contract. Sure, you made up numbers to maybe meet these low capital targets, but there's no evidence that those numbers are correct. The numbers used to be $2 million, and they're likely to be much more higher than $800,000. And there's no upside for us in this contract.
Thank you.
No
I appreciate
upside.
it very much. Your time is up. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Deb Fisher. I live on East Prospect. Some of you may know or not that I'm not a golfer, never have been. However, I do love having the course in our community since I was a kid. Today, as a resident and a realtor, I continue to cherish it for the beauty of the landscape, the camaraderie of the people who do golf here, and the sunsets from the deck, and the added real estate value it gives our community as an amenity. I know of no community on the North Shore with as well-rounded a park district offering beach, pool, tide pool, tennis, paddle, pickleball, rec center, range of possible court classes, golf, cross-country ski, Lake Bluff open lands, Lake County Forest Preserves, Oriole Grove, all round out the recreational opportunities that make Lake Bluff unique. The choice of recreation matters to residents and it matters to potential home buyers. I'm here today to ask that you approve the contract as it's been negotiated with Golf Visions with the dates that are on it, because I do think that it's important to be able to market events and passes and everything like that in December, which was done last year. You probably can't get as many of the outings because you've already been kind of up in the, it would be up in the air, but however, about the contract, not being in the business of golf myself, I did ask someone who is to review the contract and offer his opinion. Local resident John Krasnovic agreed to do that. He lives in Lake Bluff. He's a partner in Golf Data Tech LLC, which is described as golf's leading marketing intelligence company. He's got over 1,400 followers on LinkedIn, so I appreciate that he'll share his wisdom directly. He's out of town, so he asked that I read a letter from him. Dear Commissioners, I believe you're considering a new contract for Golf Visions to manage the Lake Bluff Golf Course. there's some discussion about possibly opening the negotiation to others beyond Golf Visions. I wanted to provide my perspective on the new contract that's under consideration. To understand my point of view and why it might be relevant, I've been involved in the golf business 37 plus years, the last 25 as a partner in golf data tech. In 2019 and 2020, I conducted 2 studies of golf course users on behalf of the Park District and Golf Visions, so I have knowledge of how things operate. Additionally, I frequently do expert interviews about the golf industry for publications like Golf Digest, New York Times, USA Today, CNBC, etc., about my perspective on the business. From my perspective, which includes having been involved with Ron Salsky and the Park District during the search and selection of Golf Visions, I believe the contract being considered is quite favorable to Lake Bluff. Golf Visions is unique in that they specialize in running public access municipal golf courses, and they are also particularly adept at controlling costs and running an efficient operation. Additionally, they're local and they understand the nuances.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher.
I just wanted to, I don't want to single you out, Jennifer, but you did say something earlier that I wanted to address. You were talking about SMC and the FEMA grant, and, well, I think you're being a little misleading there, and I don't know if that was intentional or not. I don't want to speak to your intentions, but I know from SMC, I've heard him say at least a half dozen times, and I've talked to him specifically personally about that, and he has said from the get-go that there's both state and federal grants available for a wetlands project. So I'm not sure, I think it's important not to muddy the waters and create doubt where there is none. I'd also like to talk about Golf Visions. I know we're talking about that now. Has anyone, I know there's in the contract, there's something where you can look at the financials of Golf Visions as it pertains to the Park District. Was that done? Do we know how much money they're actually making on our property and our equipment? I mean, that would obviously, as a businessman, I would want to know that if I have that information privy so I can negotiate from a position of strength. And the whole notion that Golf Visions is going to go away is kind of ludicrous, because you run the numbers, they basically have no risk because they get the first $800,000. And I can't imagine it's even costing them that much to run the place. So they're making a ridiculous amount of money, which is sort of why they're like, oh yeah, we'll give you some more money now that this SMC thing's hanging over our head. So you gotta keep in mind, in 2027, when probably none of you guys are still here, and someone else will be here, they're gonna be pretty messed up as far as being able to negotiate from any kind of leverage point. And you know what's gonna happen? At the same time, the irrigation system, golf cart paths, the clubhouse, it's all gonna need big money. Like probably between $1 and $2 million, and Golf Visions will be laughing at you guys, or not you guys, but someone else. Yeah, we're not paying for that. That's on you because it's in the contract. So just something to keep in mind as you think about what's happening here tonight, and what you're locking not only the Park District into, but the entire Lake Bluff community. Because you're not sitting in a vacuum here. And I think it's important to get much better feedback from the public than the same people coming up here. I'm sure you guys are getting sick of hearing me and everyone else that keeps coming up here.
Thank you.
When there's a lot of other people that you haven't even heard from.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Skip Martin, and I come here in peace. He's right, probably getting tired of hearing everybody get up, certain other, same people over and over again. I live over on Pine Court. I got up for the first public hearing meeting to thank you, each and every one of you, for all your efforts. And also to thank you for saving the golf course the first time. And that I think we as a community need to start looking at these as being wins instead of always fighting. So I'm here again today after reading the golf visions and also reading the task force report probably 5 or 6 times, but also to thank you again, because I think this amendment that you put forth is another win. It's a win. It's a win for our community because of 3 things. It provides certainty. As I mentioned before, and did a cross analysis, is that the task force, I think, did an awesome job, but there's still a lot of uncertainty in that proposal. A ton of uncertainty. This amendment provides the golf course with certainty through 2028. Secondly, you did an awesome job, I think, of significantly improving the economics of this deal. We didn't have the leverage the first time, but we clearly had it the second time, and I think you did an awesome job of getting that. If we make this deal now, Golf Visions is actually going to give us $80,000 up front that they were not prepared to do in our past agreement. I mean, that's a huge win, another win. And plus, they're also willing to increase the percentage of what we get over $800,000. And lastly, you agree, by agreeing to move forward with this amendment, fulfills your responsibility as elected officials on the Park District Board to, as stewards of community resources, per the Lake Bluff Park District mission. That is what we elected you to do. That's what I have full confidence. You're fully informed. This amendment's been fully informed. The task force has informed you. So I don't see any reason why we need to kick this decision down the road any longer. It's time to act. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question about the process. State law requires that any contract of value of more than $25,000 must be competitively bid. The memorandum that you have that justifies the entire premise for the board to bid on this tonight states as follows. The original license agreement included the provision for 1 5-year extension. By amending the current contract to include the first 5-year extension, the Park District is not required to put this out to bid. If you read the Golf Visions agreement, there is no provision in there for a 5-year extension. I've read it several times. It does not exist. That statement in the memorandum is justifying, allegedly justifying, the right to vote on this tonight is false. The second statement, that by amending the current contract to include the 5-year extension, is also false. The amendment does not reference any 5-year extension in the original agreement. Again, it's state law that you must bid out a contract over $25,000. I would ask the board to ask the attorney to actually cite where in the agreement it says there is a 5-year extension. Otherwise, you're basically just doing an amendment to a contract, and anybody can do an amendment to any contract in any terms they like. If we allow this to go through, it's a precedent, basically, that the board can skirt any kind of competitive bidding at any time. So I think it's wrong. I think that this needs to be competitively bid. And I think it's illegal, actually, to vote on it tonight because it's a violation of state law. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know how this works, but I'll do my best. My name is Jerry Woody. I live in Norwood, have since 1984. I am a member of a relatively small group of people. The PGA of America. I've been a golf professional for 49 years. I've worked as a head professional at 5 different public facilities in the Chicago area. and I'm very familiar with the personnel and the operations of Golf Visions. First, I have one question. In the literature about tonight's meeting, there was a number of $827,000 that the golf course would lose over the course of the contract. Is that the case? I'm asking, do we have a contract that says that we are going to lose $827,000? Any of you are welcome to answer.
Again, we're not doing questions and answers, we're just listening.
Okay, all right, so I guess my question would be, oh, you said no questions and answers.
We'll listen to your questions, we're not going to be answering you tonight.
I see. I was just wondering, after listening to Mr. Greenfield talk about the 40,000 here and 40,000 there, to the good, does that still result in the loss of $827,000 over the time of the contract? I believe that Golf Visions is an extremely viable public golf operator, and I doubt that we could do better anywhere else. So I have no issues if we continue that contract. But what about the $10 million that the Park District, Village, whoever would be receiving with the stormwater management? I don't understand why we would look at a loss of $827,000 as being a positive compared to a gain of $10 million. Maybe I'm being simple-minded, but that's my opinion.
Thank you.
Can I ask a clarifying question? Because I heard there's outs, Nikki said there's outs of this contract, and I just need to make, John, can I ask you, what are those outs? Is it just by December 1st of this, or December 1st of this year? Is that the only out of this contract?
I appreciate you asking. At this point, we're just going to listen to questions. We're not going to be debating back and forth or answering questions.
Okay, because I think the public would like to hear, we've already been misrepresented once with how it was presented. So is the only out December 1st of 2021? Yes, from the people who have studied it. I just, as you know, at Dale Gamma at Green Bay Road, I've been here, I think, every meeting except for one. You heard at the last meeting comments. You said you wanted to hear from us. I sat across the board table from a couple of you, and you asked for more time, and you asked for us not to take this to referendum because you wanted more time. And you're saying that you are, in the beginning of the meeting, you said you're looking forward to talking with SMC and exploring, but yet you're putting this deadline on us. And the original contract, when I think you bid on it in February of 22, there was always an out for if we ever went into any contract with SMC. And now that out has this time limit of December 1st, just weeks after you'll get information on data from the entire town, not Knollwood unfortunately, but from the village about what people really want. So you've said you're listening. You've listened over and over again, but yet you're putting us in this cage of not being able to renegotiate. We could renegotiate with Golf Visions every single year, and I would bet you they would come back because they are taking our money from all of our acres of land. They're not going anywhere. So why would you set out, if you're good fiduciaries, like you claim that that's your mission to be, why would you box us in like this? I just don't understand it. It is not necessary. We could have a much different contract, and I'm afraid there's only one reason why you would sign this and approve this tonight, is that you don't want to lose the golf course and you don't want to look into the wetland opportunity of $10 million and saving our beach and pool, which again, we have heard no plan for from any of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Yes, I'm Cheryl Becker, and I've spoken at other meetings, I've been at other meetings, and I do have a question because I don't understand about your comment earlier that several weeks ago you asked to meet with SMC or you've sent something to them and they have not gotten back to you yet. So I'm not clear about what that is because at the August 9th meeting, the SMC representative got up and spoke and asked to meet. So I'm not clear what it is that they're not getting back to. My understanding is that for state funding for the wetlands, a plan is required, some sort of proposal is required. But there is no proposal until the park board meets with SMC. So I don't know if I'm misunderstanding that, but that means the park board would need to meet with SMC in order to develop some sort of proposed plan that we could discuss. Because right now we're discussing an idea, and the second thing would be, of course, that the community have the park board's information of the capital needs for the project. So I can really appreciate all the comments that you made in the closing remarks on August 9th. I've appreciated everyone for their response, but it seems to me that the extension of this contract through 2028 would effectively close off the discussions of the wetland. Thank you. Thank you.
I think given the speed at which you've been able to deal with SMC, that the December 1st signing a contract with them, if that were to be a road we could go down, is ludicrous. And again, given you won't have the results of the Lake Bluff referendum until November, there's no way you could act on the wishes of the people. But I really sincerely question your desire to act on the wishes of the residents. But if you can call up the Vice President of Golf Visions any time, would you please ask him about the pesticides and fertilizers, the amounts and quantities being deposited on the land and breathed in by Lake Bluff Elementary School children? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. In listening to the duration of the contract and inviting you to be stewards of your constituents, perhaps you could go in and reduce the duration of the contract instead of 2028, bring it down to 2026, unless, of course, you've already decided. The other thing is, this other woman brought up, I am really amazed and actually disappointed that the environmental impact of the golf course isn't considered more, or hasn't at least been brought to the public as having been considered. We heard a woman talk about real estate. For every person who thinks that real estate will go because we say that we have a golf course, I've heard many young people who are millennials who say, I will not move to Lake Bluff because I am not putting my child in Lake Bluff Elementary School. And I think the mindset of younger people is more along the environmental route than, oh, let's have a golf course. A golf course is nice, but we are here to think about the future. Not our immediate needs, not our immediate desires, not what we think is a fun thing to do. It's more, this city has an obligation, a moral obligation to make decisions about our environment going forward in the future. So I encourage you to not think about today so much as a decision-making process, but think about the long-term impact. And again, as I say, as stewards of our community, I invite you to maybe think, if you've already decided you're going to sign this contract, to think about sort of an equal opportunity from what you've heard, both sides, a lot of it, to say, how about if we lower the duration of the contract to 2024 instead of, or 2026 instead of 2024? Thank you very much.
Thank you. I guess we'll turn this over then to if there are comments from folks on Zoom.
Stephanie Martin.
You're on mute, Stephanie.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to start my statement tonight with a cliche that I'm sure you've all heard, and that is actions speak louder than words. So if I recall correctly, at the August 4th board meeting, you guys discussed the pros and cons of having a citizen-sponsored advisory referendum in November, which some of us thought could help you assess the values and desires of the community regarding the golf club and wetland and other recreational opportunities. In that discussion, several of you expressed that you thought that November was too soon to get voters' input because you needed time to assess the community input from the recent public meetings. You needed time to analyze the task force findings, time to better understand and negotiate the opportunity offered by SMC. Based on your need for additional time to consider all of that, some of you thought it would make more sense to have an April referendum. But now, just a couple weeks later, you're considering signing a contract that will force you to do all that research, negotiation, and decisions by December 1st. And then at that point, you'll be locked into a long-term relationship with Golf Visions for 6 more years with no way to get out, no matter what offers or opportunity we might receive. So in just over 2 weeks, you guys went from needing a long period of time to make long-term decisions, to very little time to lock us into a long-term contract. That's a striking change and needs to be explained to the public. By approving this contract tonight, you will be declaring the will of the Park District taxpayers irrelevant, and that in making this decision, it is only you 7 who matter. You'll be making the biggest decision in Park District history without even knowing what your constituents want. This is questionable governance at best. Is this the legacy you really want to leave behind? Thank you.
Anya Sharman.
Yeah, hello. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
So I had a whole bunch of comments I had scripted, but they've been mostly said. So I'm going to go script. And one, I'd like to say it would be nice if you as a board would respond to issues. I get that you can't do it in a board meeting, but you could, people bring stuff up and there's no response. So send an email out. I don't know how you do it, how you can do it, but this listening trend is not working because we're not hearing your responses. Number one, it's very clear you're not taking them in. 2 is, it's clear this is a pro golf board, with the exception of a few people who I admire, who are standing up for their voices. But it's offensive that at every meeting, you know, you had this task force do a ton of research and the results are out, but at every board meeting, you only talk about golf. That's all you talk about, is how much money golf could make. And it's kind of offensive that you're not sharing with the public more. I know you have it on spreadsheets, but not everyone's reading those, that you're not talking about them at these various board meetings. So to me, this is a time where why would we push a deadline that we don't need to push? Because Golf Visions, my understanding is it's not coming up right away. Why would we push a deadline that's not a deadline? And why wouldn't we take more time to analyze and to talk to the public about what they want and what the true facts are. Actually, I'm all about the facts. And I did hear someone else say that this could be a violation of state law, and I'm on board with that because I've heard that too, and I've had someone else say that to me. So please don't move forward if you are not getting competitive bids, because as you sign a new 5-year contract, frankly, it's the right time to actually get those competitive bids. If you get the SMC proposal, the Gulf Vision proposal, we could get a better deal somewhere else. And why wouldn't we? Let's say we decide to keep the golf course, and that's, if there's a better deal, let's get it. And now's the time to do that versus just signing a contract. So to me, is what's the harm in pushing this decision out, waiting till you guys answer some questions, the public, and we get all the answers. Thank you very much. Tanya Sharman, 300 East Blodgett.
Thank you.
Mary Scanlon Hogan.
Hi. In the February 22nd Park Board meeting minutes, you reported that Gulf Vision's representatives informed Executive Director Beeler that they were aware of discussions with SMC, and they said that a clause could be included in the contract, which would indicate that if a wetland project is approved, the license agreement would be terminated. And it seems from the board discussions, having a contractual termination option mattered to some of the board members who voted to approve this effort to renegotiate the contract. But the contract termination clause that you presented today is extremely limiting. December 1st is just over 3 months away. It would be extremely challenging to get a deal signed with SMC in 3 months, especially since you haven't been able to sit down with them for more than 20 months. And there's no mention in the minutes or in my understanding of the contract that Gulf Vision actually needs this contract renewed by December 1st, or a go-ahead from our park board with this new contract 16 months before the current contract expires. Instead of a contract termination clause that gives you the time and opportunity to get the best deal for taxpayers, you're proposing a contract termination clause that creates an arbitrary December 1st deadline that only serves to force a rushed agreement, and that creates a significant risk to the park board that it will never, get a reasonable time to consider an offer from SMC because the deadline will have passed. It seems extremely restrictive that we only have a short 3-month window to get out of a contract that lasts more than 6 years. I mean, why do we have to lock ourselves into such a long contract with such a short-term termination clause? Gulf Visions is not investing in our course. They don't need a multi-year commitment to recoup their investment in the golf course. They're investing zero in our golf course. They have no long-term investment or ownership stake in our community or our golf course. We are the only party in this contract with a long-term commitment to the land. And as the long-term owner and investor in that land, we as a community should be able to determine whether we extend this contract or not. And it seems like the most likely reason for the December 1st deadline is to make sure that a new park board that will be elected in April 2023 has no choice in this matter. And since this opportunity with SMC will be long gone by 2028, that means that this deal disenfranchises every park district voter and the tax-paying residents, the most important choice, I think, in the Lake Bluff Park District history. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. We'll close public comment for now. And just to summarize, the current contract that we have with Gulf Visions gives us a 10% of the revenue collected when the revenue exceeds $800,000. We did not make any money in 2019, if I recall correctly, and we did in 20 and 21 as well. Is that right? Thank you. Okay. So this amendment to the contract that we have in front of us with Gulf Visions gives us a guarantee. It's a guaranteed revenue per year, plus a step up in the revenue that's there for revenues over $800,000 for the years of the contract. So we have a guarantee of at least $330,000 that's going to be paid to the Park District with this amendment, and there could be additional revenues on top of that depending on the revenues that Golf Vision makes. Did I summarize that correctly? Okay. So at issue before the board is the date that we have in the contract. It seems, and again, I want to make sure that I'm summarizing what I'm hearing from the board members as well as from the community. There needs to be certainty. There needs to be some date certain so that we know how we're operating. The question is the December 1st date. Okay, so I will ask if there is a motion regarding the contract amendment for Golf Vision that's in front of us.
Jennifer, I move that we approve the contract amendment with Golf Vision with the change on page 2 to indicate that the $50,000 per year is paid for years 2024 through 2028, and that the board directs the executive director and the president of the Park District Board to sign the contract with Golf Vision, the amendment with Golf Vision.
Is there a second?
I'm not going to second it at this time. I really want to bring up a point with, several of the people in the audience have said we're listening, not acting. Okay, I'm acting. Has this contract been reviewed by council, particularly with respect to the clause about putting something like this out for bid? Are we in legal compliance with this amendment?
I can weigh in if you'd like, Jennifer.
Yeah, yes, please. Okay.
If you look on page 43 of the original contract, it's section 2.2 where it indicates term. This original contract or this original agreement actually contemplates within that paragraph that this would be extended. If you read the license agreement shall commence January 1st, 2019, expire December 31st, 2023. At least 180 days prior to the expiration of the 5-year term, the licensor and licensee will meet and attempt to mutually agree on terms to renew the license agreement for an additional term on such terms and conditions as they can mutually agree. That being said, the original term was a 5-year term. The contemplated terms that are referenced in that section refer to an additional 5-year term. So there is nothing wrong with not doing an RFP.
Can you say that again, Megan, just to make sure?
There's nothing wrong with not issuing an RFP. This agreement in that section that I just cited contemplates there being an additional term, that term being 5 years.
Okay. So there's no problem with, excuse me.
That's correct.
No need to issue an RFP for this. It's built into the contract that this can be renegotiated.
Correct.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Sven?
It does, and based on that explanation from council, I will second Paul's motion.
Okay. Right. May I have roll call, please? Motion.
Commissioner Greenfield. Yes. Commissioner Lane. Commissioner Raymore. No. Commissioner Reeder. Commissioner Walsh. Commissioner Weber. President Beeler.
Thank you. Our second item under new business is our North Shore Water Reclamation Basin Project with an update.
Yes, you can see the, I guess some of the newest sets of plans that are in the packet this evening. I think the important things we want to point out from our perspective is some of the things that were incorporated in these plans that will benefit our residents and the users of our beach. Primarily, they're including reorienting the generator to not reorienting, but tucking it back a little bit farther away so that it's level with the building. And then they're moving the wet well and public restrooms. Public restrooms are going to be very advantageous for us to have down there where we can get rid of our portable restrooms. We'll also have new outdoor showers, and they will resurface the parking lot, the access road, replace the guardrail with a wooden guardrail. These are all in the plans that they're putting out to bid, so there will be some great improvements that they didn't necessarily need to do as part of their project. That also includes a lot of new landscaping and facade on their building that will make it look better. And I know that the mural on the side of the building was one of the concerns, but my understanding at this point is that the mural's on hold. I don't think they're going forward with that project, so I think the rest of it it's going to be a difficult year, definitely next summer for our beach operation, but in the end it's going to be a great project and it's going to benefit our residents. And so we're still looking like they're going to get this project started in the fall. So that's really about all I wanted to, or all I needed to say about it, unless you have any questions this evening. I don't have an exact date. They were talking about October, but the last time that I talked to the village, they still need to approve the final plans, and that meeting was postponed. So I would just say fall.
And the Yacht Club is already making their notices to everybody to move their boats out. I know that Jim spoke at our Parks and Beach meeting and talked about moving the sailing program, if we could, possibly down to Lake Forest, which would be a great way to continue on and not lose exciting young and old sailors, if I can call them old sailors, sailors of all ages. So we'll make the best accommodations that we can to be able to give the other sides of the beach accessible during the next summer, but it's going to come upon us very quickly with the changes. And to have a bathroom down at the beach is going to be a boom. It would be a good thing. So anything else on the project? Nope. All right, and then we do have the maintenance building roof proposal, which is page 78 of our packet.
Yes, I'm going to pass the microphone to Noah. I just briefly want to mention we were looking at replacing the maintenance roof, a total tear-off, and one of the commissioners at the time kind of questioned the price, and Noah has reached out and spoke with a roofing company about doing this process, this coating that should extend the life. I believe it's 10 to 15 years, so it may not have a 20-year warranty, but it went from, I think, an estimate of $90,000 out of what you see in the packet now. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Noah here and tell you a little bit about it.
That is correct. As Executive Director Beeler stated, we had a budgeted capital need of about $90,000 for the full tear off of the roof. In speaking with different contractors, we were able to come up with a different method of repairing the roof that allows this coating to be placed on it. It comes with a 10-year warranty for materials. It brings the budget number down to $28,000 rather than the original number. We had budgeted $25,000 in the budget for this year, but due to rising costs of labor and materials, that's why the budget number is 28.
Roll call, please, Marcia.
Commissioner Greenfield. Yes. Commissioner Lane. Commissioner Raymore. Commissioner Reader. Yes. Commissioner Walsh. Commissioner Weber. President Beeler. Yes. Going on to written communications. Once again, in the packet is the QR code and the link for folks to write to the Park District. Please again use this site at www.lakebluffparks.org/land-use-comments. We appreciate the fact that people are certainly writing into all of us as board members. We would like to encourage people to use this site so that your comments are included in the packets that we put forward from the Park District. We do read them. We do take a look at everything that's there, making sure that we have the appropriate follow-through with the comments that are made or the questions that are made as well. Anything further from?
No, just a reminder, we have those in the back as well. We received a couple of handwritten comments this evening.
Okay, and I know that from the questions that have come up, we're working with PCI to update our frequently asked questions, so that the questions that have been put forward from the email are addressed and answered. And with that, I will ask if we can have a motion, please, to conclude our board meeting for this evening. All in favor? Thank you. That was